It's been a couple of years since drones first started coming onto the consumer market, and in that time they've changed rather drastically. Due to the popularity of these items, certain laws and other regulations had to be introduced in order to ensure that they are operated in a safe and secure manner and by competent users. A major part of those regulations revolved around the minimum weight at which point a drone would have to be registered, and this gave DJI the idea to create a drone which fell below that weight requirement but still packed a ton of features. So, have they delivered? Well, I suppose you already know that DJI have indeed achieved their goal, as the Mavic Mini has quickly become one of the most popular consumer drones out there. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of details regarding the build and other specs, as you'd probably heard them a gazillion times before. Instead, I'd much rather get pretty much straight into what it's like to use a drone like this from the perspective of someone who has never used a drone before. But I'll throw a few specs on the screen and just briefly talk about the build nonetheless. If, on the other hand, you do want to get a bit more detail about the design and the specs, then check out the link in the description, which will take you to the full written review. Also, with regards to drone registration, if you are in the United Arab Emirates and you are uncertain of what the requirements and procedures are to register a drone, then have a look in the description of this video for a link to an article which outlines the whole process I went through when I registered this specific drone. Right, so back to the Mavic Mini. It seems to be very similar to the likes of DJI's other drones, especially with regards to how it folds up, and it's just as though everything is scaled down into a very neat and compact form factor. One of the recurring complaints I picked up on with other reviews is that the Mini feels cheap and flimsy. After taking it out of the box, I must say that I was pleasantly surprised, because it did not feel as flimsy as I was led to believe. I was sort of expecting it to feel like those really flexible polycarbonate shells on remote control cars. Instead, the plastic is way more sturdy than those polycarbonate shells, and so I guess those who complained about it feeling cheap and flimsy were probably saying so in reference to DJI's more premium drones. If that is the case, then I can understand their criticism, but for what it is, I think what DJI has done here is perfectly adequate. We should keep in mind that a weight of 249 grams was a very important goal to accomplish, and so everything on the Mavic Mini is basically function over form. Yes, the body does have some flex in the front arms, and they are filled in with some kind of foam, and the blades are also really thin and flexible, but all of that was done for the purpose of reaching that weight goal. The controller feels to have about the same build quality as the Mini, which is to say that it might not feel super premium, but it doesn't feel like a ridiculously cheap and hollow item either. As with many of these types of drones, you can connect your smartphone and then use it as a display for the controller. However, you don't need to connect your device to the controller in order to fly it. The advantage, on the other hand, is massive, as having the display obviously allows you to see all sorts of information such as what the camera sees, various telemetry, the battery life remaining, as well as allowing you to adjust some of the settings. Overall, I think DJI did a phenomenal job with the design of the Mavic Mini, as producing a drone of this size and weight and then still managing to pack in all of its features could not have been an easy task. As mentioned before, I am totally new to drones, so I guess this aspect of the review was a bit more of a true test as to how user-friendly the Mavic Mini is. If someone who has never used a drone is able to operate it with relative ease, then it should be absolutely no problem at all for anyone who is more experienced with these products. And honestly, I simply could not have asked for an easier introduction into this little world. In the case of the Mavic Mini, absolutely everything from setting it up, connecting it to the app, and getting it off the ground could not reasonably be more simple. Sure, compared to the more expensive drones from DJI, the Mavic Mini does lack a number of features, in particular with regards to obstacle avoidance, but it does at least have downwards facing sensors, which helps it with taking off, landing, and maintaining a stable hover. In fact, taking off and landing is essentially done completely automatically. Maintaining a stable hover also requires practically zero input from the user, unless there is a fair amount of wind. However, I also do have to caution you to ensure that you have adequate lighting available. A large part of why these drones are so stable is because of the various sensors, especially with GPS positioning. You can fly it without having a GPS lock, but then it relies heavily on the downwards facing sensors to maintain a stable hover, and so if the ambient lighting is not very good, it can lead to the drone drifting or making some other unexpected maneuvers. So just keep that in mind, especially if you fly it indoors where you won't be able to get a GPS lock. In pretty much any other condition though, the Mavic Mini is incredibly stable. Right, so on to one of the key features of the Mavic Mini, and that is the camera. It's rather difficult to judge what you could reasonably expect from a camera on a drone at this price point, as well as just the physical size of the camera unit itself. But I have to say I'm really impressed with what DJI has achieved here. Since its initial release in late 2019, there have been quite a number of firmware updates, and as a result, the Mini has gained some very prominent new features. Unfortunately, we still don't get the ability to shoot in RAW format for images and also can't get 4K resolution for videos. But this is essentially an entry-level drone, and so I think these limitations are pretty much to be expected. With the firmware updates, the Mini now has much greater flexibility by being able to adjust the ISO and shutter speed settings, but the aperture is still fixed at f2.8. During this review, I mostly left the settings on auto and just locked the exposure as I was interested in seeing what the system could do on its own. For the most part, it does a pretty decent job, and it's only really the white balance which can sometimes be rather off, especially as the software can often change the white balance during the same shot. Thankfully, you can also enter a manual white balance setting within the app, but this also requires you to know what the white balance value is for your current lighting conditions. Another aspect of the camera system is the 3-axis gimbal, and I have to say that this works surprisingly well. As far as I can tell, it seems that this is a pretty groundbreaking design to be included in a drone of this size and at this price point. It offers an exceptionally smooth and stable camera view whilst flying, as well as of course when taking photos and video in the air. So yes, the camera on the Mavic Mini certainly does have some rather obvious limitations, but for what this product is, I still think DJI delivered more than what we could have reasonably expected from such a compact and cost-effective product. Now, the kit I've got here is just the standard one, but there's also the Flymo Combo, which includes a bunch of extras. The combo will only set you back around $100 or so more than the standard package, and if you can afford it, then I highly recommend that you get it. If you were to buy 2 extra batteries separately, that already gets you to around $100. Moreover, if you are new to drones, then the additional props and the prop guard will be of a huge benefit to you. But either way, whether you get the standard pack or the Flymo Combo, the Mavic Mini is a fantastic little drone. Sure, it might not exactly feel like an ultra premium product, but again, the lightweight nature of this product served a very specific function. Having looked around for a bit now, I was curious to see if there's anything else on the market which can feasibly compete with the Mini, and there just isn't anything out there yet. For the $400 to $500 price tag, there just isn't anything that gives you this combination of features, camera quality, and ease of use. What DJI has produced here is perhaps the most accessible drone, which pretty much anyone can pick up and fly in a very short period of time. Like I said, this was the first time I've ever flown a drone, and I must admit that the bug has bitten me, and I'm really interested in checking out some more drones. So if you've also never gotten into drones, and perhaps you are looking at getting the Mavic Mini, from the perspective of a first-time user, I really cannot recommend the Mavic Mini enough. Well, that's it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. If you've got any questions, please do leave them down below. That's all from me for now, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.